You heard of 'em, the Hatfields and the McCoys. Got to where the name's just a sayin'. Two folks that'll fight over anything. Been at it so long nobody rightly recalls the why of it. Well, friend, there is a why. And it ain't 100 years of hatin'. It's one afternoon. And I'll be straight with you before we start. It's smaller than you'd figure. The whole thing tips over on a debt owed on a fiddle, and it ends with 3 young men tied to a row of trees. Stay with me on this one. Pull up a chair. Let's set the record straight. First thing to get right, these two families weren't strangers glaring at each other off far apart mountains. They were neighbors, close as neighbors get. River called the Tug run between 'em. McCoys over in Kentucky, Hatfields on the West Virginia side. But that river weren't much of a wall. They married into one another, buried kin in the same ground. And when Devil Anse Hatfield, the big man on the Hatfield side, run his timber outfit, some of the fellas swinging them axes for him were McCoys. He signed their pay. 2 men run these families. Devil Anse, done all right for himself, timber money, friends in the courthouse, and Ole Ranel McCoy, 300 acres, a whole house full of children, and a good deal more pride than cash. The 2 of 'em had even soldiered together, same side in the war. That's how close we're talking. So how do neighbors like that end up burying each other? Same way it always starts, small. Back in '78, it was a hog. Ole Ranel swore a Hatfield hog was his hog, claimed the notches cut in its ear were McCoy marks, took it to trial. Jury of 6 McCoys and 6 Hatfields, and it come down to one man, a McCoy, name of Selkirk. And Selkirk votes with the Hatfields, turns that hog loose. Now why's a McCoy vote Hatfield? Well, Selkirk worked on Devil Anse's timber crew. A man's got to eat. But the McCoys never did forgive him the arithmetic of it. Then a Hatfield boy and a McCoy girl went and fell for each other, 'cause of course they did, and that ended in a baby, and no wedding, and a whole lot of hard feeling on both porches. Kindling, friend, that's all any of it was. Dry kindling, stacked up over the years, one little slight at a time. And here's where folks get it twisted. The way it's told, these were 2 tribes that hated each other since the dawn of creation. They weren't. The hate come after the blood, not before it. Before the blood, they were just neighbors and kin and hired hands who'd been rubbing wrong for years, the way neighbors do. All that dry kindling ever needed was a match. It got one on an election day. August of 1882, election day down on Blackberry Creek. Now, an election day back then weren't just voting. It was the whole county turned out, politicking, trading, visiting, and drinking. Whiskey by the jugful, out in the open, morning to dark. Both families there, both families drinking. And you pour enough whiskey on old dry kindling, well, you know how that sentence ends. The thing they got to arguing over, by most accounts, was a debt, a little one, couple dollars, owed on a fiddle. I want you to hold on to that word, fiddle. Men have died for less, but not by much. Ole Ranel's oldest, Talbert McCoy, gets to hot words over that debt, and the Hatfield he squares off against is Ellison Hatfield, Devil Anse's own brother, big fella, well liked, and that afternoon, unarmed. Words turned to shoving. Talbert's 2 younger brothers, Farmer and the one they called Bud, they weighed in on it. 3 McCoys now on the one Hatfield. And somewhere in that scrum, a knife comes out. They stab Ellison better than 20 times, and then, as he's already down, somebody levels a pistol and shoots him in the back. Now, hold on right here. Whatever comes after in this story, and what comes after is bad, don't you lose this. A man got stabbed 24 times over a $2 fiddle in front of the whole county. That's on McCoy's hands, plain. The horror in this one don't sit on just the one side of the river. The 3 McCoy boys get arrested, proper, by the constables, and started off toward the jail up at Pikeville, which is exactly where the law should have carried it, and where this whole thing might have ended. It did not end there, 'cause word reaches Devil Anse that his brother's been cut to pieces over a couple dollars. And Devil Anse does not wait on the law. He gathers a posse, rides out, and takes those 3 boys off the constables at gunpoint, carries them back across the river to the West Virginia side, his ground. And here's the piece that'll set in your chest. Devil Anse didn't kill 'em right off. He set a condition. Long as Ellison drew breath, the boys drew breath. Their lives run on his brothers like a wager. Their mama, Sarah, she's let in to bring 'em a little food, begs for 'em. And Devil Anse tells her, plain, he'll see her boys back home to Kentucky either way. He kept that word, just not the way she was down on her knees praying for. The next day, Ellison died of his wounds. So the Hatfields made the wager good, carried the 3 McCoy boys back across the Tug, to the Kentucky side, mind, back onto their own home ground, and tied 'em to a row of pawpaw trees. Talbert, Farmer, Bud, more than 50 shots. And then it was quiet on the Tug again. Now, folks remember the Hatfields and McCoys as a war, years of it, ambushes, the cabin burned in the snow, more of Ole Ranel's children in the ground before it was through, and a man on the gallows at the far end of it. All of that's real, and all of it come after, but every bit of it pours through the neck of one August afternoon. 3 boys and a stand of trees. And I keep coming back to how small the match was. A hog, a boy and a girl, a $2 fiddle. Because that's the thing this story's trying to hand us, if we'll sit still long enough to take it. You don't feud with strangers, friend. Strangers can't reach you. It takes a neighbor. Somebody close enough to owe you $2. Close enough that backing down starts to feel like something you can't afford to do. Ole Ranel McCoy buried 3 sons off of that one day. Lived on near another 30 years, long enough to bury more of his children before it was all done. And by every account that ever come down off that mountain, the man never had himself a quiet hour again. Died old, still turning it over. That's the trouble with getting even. It's arithmetic that never comes out level. Somebody's always one behind. So he goes again to square it, and now the other fella's one behind. So he goes again. $2 owed on a fiddle, and they were still paying that debt off in caskets 30 years on. Because the fiddle was never the debt. The fiddle was just the thing that stood close enough to reach. And that's how it really went. Good neighbors come back. So go on and subscribe, and I'll save you a chair.